Welcome to tomorrow, everybody. My name is Jeremy, and this is Coffee After Midnight. Got my coffee right here. It is 12:30 in the morning, and I'm ready to get into it. Let's tell you a little bit about myself first and foremost. My name is Jeremy. I like to make things and be creative and fill my time with stuff like that, I guess. And this is a product of that exactly. And some other things that I like to do are I like to make music. I like to listen to music. I like to dance. I like to talk a lot. I also like to spend time by myself, as it would seem, and I don't know, just explore in any sense of the word, really, I guess. But yeah, and so this is also a byproduct of that, I guess, where I'm exploring my life in front of all of you. So here's to that. What is Coffee After Midnight? To be quite exact, it's just me keeping you updated on different things that are going to go on in my life. For, as I've previously mentioned, no particular reason, just because it's something that I was like, yeah, you know what, I can do that, and so I'll do it. And yeah, I also think I want to get across like some opinions of mine in this, if need be, or if I am so inspired to do. And if you like it, then that's dope. We can vibe. If not, that's okay too. We can talk about it, and I'm open to discussion. Hit me in the comments if you don't agree with anything that I say. If you do agree with anything that I say, hit me in the comments still. Regardless, we're gonna still be people. I guess. I also do recognize that I might have a bit of a strange way of talking. And I will say a lot. So if that is something that you tend to get irritated by, I sincerely apologize in advance. I am working on it as much as I can. There it is. Keep track at home. Tell me how many ums I say at the end of this video. Yeah, so caught it there. I want to get into a little bit more about myself in the short term, let's say. As I mentioned before, I am someone who likes to create things and make things, and because of that, I have a couple of projects going on right now that are in the works, and I'm going to be developing them with myself or with other people, by myself or with other people. And so I'm going to tell you a bit about those projects right now. One of the projects that I'm working on is also a podcast, and it's with a very good friend of mine named Spencer, and it's called Brainstorm Bunker, and that should be out on streaming services elsewhere, and I'm not exactly sure what's happening, but you can for sure follow us on Instagram, and I will make sure to put our @ down in the description below. It's Brainstorm Bunker. That's the name of the podcast, and it's basically where we just get together in his basement, or separately, or wherever we can find access to a microphone, really, and we just talk about things. And it could be anything from something that's like pressing matter to world events to something that we just feel very like frustrated about, to controversial subjects, to anything under the sun. And we're just two guys with mouths that make sounds, and sometimes those sounds make sense. Sometimes. So you can check that out. That's to be coming, and we already have a couple of episodes recorded, and they're going to be distributed in the near future. Other than that, like I said before, I like to make music. And so another project that I'm working on right now is a follow-up project to an album that I put out a year and a half ago now, called The King's Fool. And the album that I'm working on now is called The King's Downfall. That's it. And basically what it is it's part of this like 3-part trilogy of musical albums. That's trilogy is 3 parts, but it's a 3-part project comprised of 3 different musical albums, but or I should say recorded albums, because they're not entirely music. They do have a lot of music in them, and I am making a good amount of music, and I think the majority of each project will be music based at the very least, but it will also include spoken word, just voice skits, and storytelling, and just different versions of just different recorded mediums of getting a story across. Because as I said before, I like to explore a lot of different things, and one of the things that I am having a lot of fun with in taking on this project is just being creative with the different ways that I can tell stories, audioly, through audio. Let's go with that. So that's something else that I'm working on, and then the next one to follow will be coming after that one. So, but that I have no concrete timeline set yet. I just know that I'm working on it right now, and it is in the process. And so for those of you who do follow me and are into my music, that is on the way. Also, right now, because of where we're at right now in the world, a lot of the world is in quarantine. If you're watching this in the future, then this is going to be like, whoa, throwback, crazy, trippy, what a time in the past. That's, oh my gosh. But right now, where we're at is a lot of people are like self-isolating, and the world is sort of on a lockdown of sorts because the coronavirus, COVID-19, is just affecting a lot of the world, and it's spreading like wildfire. So a lot of people are just cooped up in their homes, and that just so happens to be the case for myself as well. And so this is one of the ways that I am still going about some sort of routine, and giving myself something to do to fill that time and try and be productive with it, and just reach out to other people and be like, yo man, you know what, like we're all in this together. I don't know if I can get sued for that, but we will find out. So so another thing that I'm doing in this quarantine time is I have this like affection for a lot of different like styles of music, and primarily the music that I make is rap music. And so what I am doing right now is I'm going through all these different like songs, and most of them are rap songs already, but some of them aren't. And I'm like listening to the music, and I'm like, I really like that music, and I want to like write something to that music. And so I'm taking all of these different like audio tracks and instrumentals, and I'm writing my own verses to them, and I am going to be putting that out on a free platform, so that it's not like I'm like giving all the credit to. I'm not like taking any money for it, because it's not my like music itself. But it's just something that I was like, oh man, you know, this is like a fun little personal project that I can do to like just appreciate for myself, and like appreciate the music, and then like give back to the music that gave to me, essentially. And so that's what I want to do with that. And I don't know what it's going to be called yet, but that is in the works. And I have 2 songs that I'm working on right now for that. One of them is to a Brockhampton song, and another one is to a song by the Struts. So that's in the works. And there's just a whole other like line of projects, or a lineup of projects that I'm working on with like other people in collaboration. To name a few, one of them is called Gas Station Wine, and that's one that I started with the people who I'm like my classmates, basically all of the people who I go to school with. Well, not all of the people who I go to school with, because at my school there are upwards of 5,000 students, but the friendly faces, the the other 18 people in my class who I spend day in and day out with, usually, aside from the past week and a bit. We started a performance collective of sorts because I'm studying theater at school, and as are the rest of my classmates. And something that we noticed is that a lot of us have all these other different talents or interests that branch off from just straight theater. And so some of us are dancers, some of us are singers, some of us, like myself, are musicians, and some of us like to like write sketch comedy or just like to write dramatic scenes in general or anything like that. And so, and the whole like through line of this is like all of us enjoy acting to some degree, I hope. So we decided to come together, and like it was something that we started working on I would say roughly about a year ago, and or maybe about a year and a half ago, and has since developed into a whole like sort of network of different social medias, including a YouTube, which is up and running and already has our first video up on it. And it happens to be a music video for my most recent song called The Writer. And so that is up and running, and that is still sort of going off. And we have more videos that are filmed and are in the process of being edited right now. And so will be coming out shortly. And then aside from that, I'm also working in like the live theater sense as well on like personal projects with a couple of classmates as well, who are just like wonderful people. And like I think that's like, I really like working with people from my class. Sometimes we have our struggles and sometimes we have like different conflicting views and everything, but I think like the people in my class I have this special kinship with and the special bond with, and like I'm sure other people who have gone through similar training programs might agree, or you might have a terrible story to tell, and if that's the case, I'm sorry. I hope your days are better now. But with people in my class, like we find that like a lot of the work that we do, we have a lot of fun doing, and so we wanted to work together, and so we're working together both online and we're working together in the live performance sense of it. And that essentially sort of wraps up like my short-term plans right now. My day-to-day activity, just to keep you guys updated, because hey, who doesn't want to be updated? I would imagine a lot of you, it probably doesn't change your lives much to know what I'm doing in my life. But I on a day-to-day basis, what I've been doing so far is I've tried to get into some sort of routine, because as I mentioned before, with the whole being inside or like being set to a social distance of sorts, it's sort of put everything like we've had to cancel schools or cancel like in-person classes, and so that has shifted my routine significantly. And I also work at the school, and so that is just another thing that has been since discontinued, if you will, or postponed, I guess. We shall see. More updates will come, I guess. But because I've been in my house for the last little bit, and I've been like trying to figure out my own personal routine. I've been trying to figure out my own personal routine, I guess. And so part of that routine includes doing a bit of homework, because we still have online classes. And so I try and stay up to date with homework and everything. But then I always try and give myself time to read and write. And the reason why I've started doing this is because like everyone who is like being like productive with their time nowadays is all like, yeah, man, I just gotta read, and I try and read a little bit and everything. And it's like, I say that with a hint of satire, I guess, but like it's productive. And I think it's dope to read. And I've started doing it more. And for a little bit of context, when I was in high school, I wasn't the most thrilled about reading per se. In fact, there's only one or two high school books that I actually ever read. And so, high school teachers, if you're watching this, I apologize sincerely. One of them was the Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, or the Shawshank Redemption and the Rita Hayworth poster, something like that. But it's Stephen King. It's basically what the movie Shawshank Redemption is based off of. But it's the Stephen King novella, and it was just fun to read. And I was like, yeah, man, this is dope. I'm reading this. I'm hooked. You got me, sort of thing, right? But then the other one was Fahrenheit 451, another stellar book, and I recently reread it because I remember reading it in high school, and I was like, this is a dope book. And that was at a time when I didn't like reading, and now I've started to get more interested in it, and I've started making it more of a routine and more of a habit. And so I reread it, and it was cool, and it was cool to see how I remembered certain things and how I remembered remembering them, and like what I felt about remembering them, but also to see how my perspective on things have changed. Because back when I was in high school, that's going back now. I graduated about 5 years ago, and when I read this, it was about 7 years ago, I would say. And so a lot can change in a guy's life, you know what I mean? So it was cool revisiting that. But yeah, so I now get excited to read, and I think that it's a very cool way to pass time. And for all of those out there who are all like, nah, man, like reading stinks, I'd say like try it out, and it may continue to stink for a little bit and everything. And I remember when I was like getting into it, I was like, oh man, like people just do this just to brag about it or whatever. But like the more I would do it, the more it became a habit, and the easier it became as well. And it started opening up my mind to well, actually what I found is that it opened up my imagination a little bit more. And I think that for someone like me, or for someone like just an artist in general, or just anyone really, I feel like anyone has the right to their own imagination, and they're having a stronger practiced imagination, or just an imagination that is malleable and flexible and open. I think that that's something that is important in whatever that you do, in anything that anyone can do, because it's like you never don't need to think of things. You can probably get by, but you won't. I personally believe that if you're doing something that like is just mundane and repetitive and everything, it's like, I think that there's always room to add your own spice to something, and your own taste and whatever that you have to offer. Because at the end of the day, you're an individual and you're a person, and you can give yourself to the world. And I think that's, I don't know. Other people might disagree. If you disagree, hit me in the comments. If you agree, hit me in the comments. I'm open to hearing both sides. But I think that just actively giving of yourself, or like giving your ideas, or just keeping an open imagination, is something that everyone either deserves to have or should do. I don't know. Let me know what you think. That's been a bit of my daily activity. Lord knows I also have been going through comedy specials on Netflix, because that's, I don't know if I can say Netflix if they'll sue me. I don't know what is suable and what isn't suable, so please don't sue me. I don't think you'd get much out of me, to be fair. But I have been watching comedy specials on streaming platforms, and I don't know, I really like comedy specials. I find that like the comedians they tend to, most of them tend to have very interesting takes on the world. And I think that to be a comedian, to be a good comedian, and to be an effective comedian, I think that you need to have a certain sense of a heightened ability to perceive things around you. And then to you have to be able to convey those observations in a way that people will relate to. And I think that far too often comedians don't get enough credit for being that active mentally, because people will be like, oh, they're a comedian, they just make people laugh with like stupid jokes, and all they have to do is just say a couple of profane slurs here and there or what have you, and then they're suddenly a comedian, they're suddenly funny. Oh yeah, whatever, that's not a real profession. But it's like, it's hard as hell. I've tried stand-up comedy actually before a couple of times, and I remember one time I was so nervous because it was like, I like being funny, but I think a lot of my humor, as I would imagine a lot of naturally funny people I would imagine a lot of naturally funny people would feel the same way. But what I realized in trying to write stand-up comedy is that like most of my humor, if not all of my humor, relies on wit and reaction as opposed to planning. And when you have to plan something and you write something down to try and make it funny, it becomes so different. Because it's no longer like, oh, okay, like this is just like, that person said this, I just got to say this like quick or in this intonation, and then they'll be like, oh my God, how'd you think of that? Like, it's more about like, this is something, and people will think that it's funny if I say it like this with this inflection, and I say this amount of times, or I have this kind of rhythm to it, and it's like that is complex. That is very complex, and it could be that that's like the process for some comedians isn't that complex, and I don't know. I don't do it enough to say that I know how it works, but that's just my outsider observation. But yeah, so I really like watching comedy specials, and yeah, I think that sort of wraps it up for my day-to-day activities. Yeah, that's about it. The rest is like more so like just personal things, like speaking to friends, speaking to loved ones. That's about it. Going to the bathroom, important, always important. Yeah, no, that's my daily activity, and I guess like from day to day, like I do have a routine, but then every now and then, or I would say every day actually, I do try to spice it up and have something different and implement some sort of new shock to my daily routine, because it's like, if it's always the exact same thing over and over and over again, day in and day out, then it, for me, gets a little stale, and it's like, okay, like what is new, what is active, what is vibrant, what can catch me off guard. So I like to have a little bit of that every day, and yeah, that's my day-to-day activity. Possible projects that I might be working on, or possible ideas of projects. This is just something that I wrote down to be like, yeah, you know what, let's see where that goes. And I have no idea where that's going to go. So let's really see where that goes. Possible projects. Well, recently, actually, I saw that there was this sort of like, I don't know if you would call it a contest, but like a school is, like a renowned school is giving away a fair amount of grants to emerging artists, and it's a school from my hometown, and again, I don't know what I can and can't say, so I'm just gonna like leave them nameless and everything, but they're offering grants to emerging artists, and I thought it was a really neat idea, because they're offering it mainly to students or people who've graduated in the last 5 years. And it's for them to produce a piece of performance art or just art in general in the realm of something that a theater student would learn. And they're offering grants to these students to produce that and put it out online because of the times that we're in right now, where we don't exactly have the access to live performance as we would normally because of the restrictions of the COVID lockdown. So that's something that's on my radar right now, and just a matter of like brainstorming and thinking of an idea of something that would be interesting to watch. And I don't even know if it's something that like I feel like would be interesting to watch, but like there are things that I do think that like, oh man, you know what, I want to make something about that, or I want to write something on that and everything. And I don't know which seed I want to develop right now and help grow into a beautiful tree. So it's sort of up in the air with that. Other projects that I have that are possibilities are things like live performances of my own music and how I would stage that. And because I have like this musical background and I like to make music and that sort of thing, of course I want to like do live performances, but I also have a theatrical background, and so I also want to have like this side of the performances that is open to more than just like live musical performance, and it's like where it incorporates some sort of theatrical element that can bring my music that people have already heard to a different level and elevate it just a little bit. Because I feel like if I'm going to be performing my own music live, I don't want it to just be like a rehashing of what I have already done. I want it to be something that like people feel like they're like paying for a reason, and they're getting an experience that they can't get otherwise, you know, aside from just seeing me. Because I don't think that I'm like important enough for someone to pay to be like, oh man, like he made this, but like now like I'm paying because I want to see him here doing the same thing that he already made that I have listened to already, you know. And like that's just my like personal opinion on it and everything. Yeah, I want to bring something new to my already existing creations in live performance. So I don't exactly know what to do with that yet, but I will figure it out. Yeah, I think that's about it for me. Let me know what you're curious about in the comments, and maybe I'll get to it next time. This has been Jeremy with Coffee After Midnight. It is 12:59. It's been half an hour. Damn, man. Not shabby on timing. And I'm signing off. Have a good night, or morning, or afternoon, depending on where you are. All right.